Can you hallucinate on chocolate? Yes. Is chocolate a psychedelic? Yes. In terms of drugs, chocolate is clearly the fifth most consumed drug on the planet. We're going to go through the evidence step by step. At the end, you'll be convinced by the facts. All the psychedelic powers of Mother Earth have been poured into the cocoa plant. But there is a catch. It's at a microdose level. It's subtle. Chocolate is the only food on Earth that contains chemical echoes of stimulants, antidepressants, cannabinoids, and even psychedelics. But they're not in doses that will overwhelm the brain. I mean, do you really think whole societies would worship chocolate if it didn't have mood-altering properties? The emperor of the Aztecs considered it sacred, and he would consume maybe 50 gold cups a day. And Mesoamerican civilizations grew to the same scale and sophistication as their Western societies. Broadly, they estimate 60 million in the Americas, 60 million in Europe, and 60 million in China at approximately the same stage. But the American civilizations fed themselves on chocolate. Their economies were based on chocolate as a currency, and of course, it was sacred to them. So when the Europeans first encountered chocolate, one of the Native Americans dropped one bean, and the European who was there commented that he scrambled down to the bottom of the canoe to find it, like he had lost one of his eyes. And that gives you a sense as how important it was to these Mesoamerican societies. Across human history, we have searched for plants that alter our reality, that change how we feel, how we think, how we experience our daily grind. And it's like we can't get through our daily life without some plant helping us mentally. Now, think about your own day. It might start with coffee. And coffee is almost a religious experience for many of us. Now, some of you might use tobacco. Many of you might have an afternoon tea or an evening chocolate, or maybe finally alcohol. Now, each one is obviously a powerful plant drug. And if you observe our species from afar, it looks like we have a problem with reality. We can't cope with life without some mind-altering plant. And you have to think, is reality that overwhelming? We're kind of caught in some weird matrix of plant physiology. And I know you think I'm exaggerating, but plants have always manipulated the minds of men. Yeast enters the chat because yeast is the Jedi. And yeast is the cause of bread, beer, wine, and chocolate. And humans have spent millennia protecting, feeding, optimizing environments for yeast. And we're predominantly talking about Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is the honey beer yeast. That is also the yeast that's responsible for the beautiful flavor of chocolate. I call chocolate the fifth largest drug business in the world. And if you look at it by ranking the scale, we start with alcohol, then we go to nicotine, tobacco, coffee, cocaine, and chocolate. And chocolate nudges cannabis. And then finally we've got tea. In terms of drugs, chocolate is clearly the fifth most consumed drug on the planet. But if you rank them by damage to us and damage to society as a whole, alcohol and nicotine stay at the very top. But if you rank them by positive, healthy effects, chocolate is the greatest drug of all time. Humanity has put huge effort and vast portions of the global economy to keep the yeast happy and reproducing. Yeast is a kind of Jedi that this single-celled fungus subtly manipulates human evolution and civilization, and that humans are essentially just simple tools to ensure their own global proliferation and survival. This is the very same yeast that's found in cocoa fermentation. Human evolution can be traced in stages by, in a way, its correlation to the concentration of alcohol. If you think about it, a wild monkey would have had wild fruit, which is probably in about the 1 or 2% concentration. If you ferment cocoa pulp, then you maybe get 1 to 3% ethanol. Beer, our very first fermentation and experience of civilization, is in the 4 to 8%, and wine is 10 to 15%. And then, of course, spirits and cocktails, where we are today, can it be anything between 30 and 40%. But the story doesn't end there, because there's a case to say, which is the stoned ape hypothesis, that we started using hallucinogenics, and the psilocybin mushrooms became a regular part of their diet. And there's an argument, at least, that's put out, that repeated mushroom consumption altered cognition and the way that we think, and gave evolutionary advantages to those humans or monkeys that used large amounts of psilocybin. And the argument is that with low doses you have improved visual acuity and hunting success. Moderate doses may increase your sort of social bonding and sexual activity, and higher doses help promote language, creativity, awareness, and a kind of mystical or religious experience. And over many generations, these effects have accelerated the development of human consciousness, and it helps explain why the brain exploded and became such a powerful organ. We can see that in chocolate from the caves of Capivara in the Amazon, in Brazil, where mankind first depicted a tree, and mankind is shown worshipping a cocoa tree. And this is the beginning of the story that chocolate is the goat of creativity, because there it is on the first cave, the first depiction of a tree or a botanical plant by mankind 30,000 years ago. And we think that chocolate was the core of that. Modern science shows that psychedelics work by disrupting the brain's normal patterns. We have reduced default mode network. Now, that's a complicated word for saying that the brain, in its interaction between the conscious and the subconscious, psychedelics break that chain. They break the link between the two. And that results in ego dissolution, a sense of unity, emotional breakthroughs. And for many, these experiences are life-changing. Chocolate seems different. It doesn't sort of cause visions. It doesn't really dissolve reality. It's seen more as a sort of heart-opening and brain-affirming chemical. But the story is a little bit more complicated than that, because inside chocolate are compounds that interact directly with your brain. And what's unique about chocolate is that it has stimulants and antidepressants and relaxants all in one bundle. So we have, and we're going to go through these, phenylalanine, and that's exactly like the thymarine or dopamine or PEA. And this has the same core structure as amphetamines or mescaline that you'd get in a cactus, which leads to dopamine. And then you have the endocannabinoids and liptids, and this is the anandamide. And sorry, the language is getting crazy, and this mimics THC. Then you have the xanthine backbone, and these are the stimulants like theobromine, caffeine. We've got tritipamine, which leads to serotonin pathways. So all these interact And all these molecules touch the same systems. And they touch the same systems as some of the most powerful psychoactive substances on Earth. But they do it in a gentle microdose way. So whereas psychedelics might be intense, disruptive, and transformative, chocolate is subtler, gentler, more familiar. It gives it pleasure. And this is super important because this is why we think it's the goat of creativity. Because if you're trying to write that novel or draw that picture of the first tree, you don't want to be overridden. You don't want to be sick and vomiting like with ayahuasca. You want a general or gentle stimulation. And in pharmacology, there's a simple principle that the dose makes the poison. So in chocolate, what we're talking about is a microdose of the same powerful psychedelics, but it enables you to be creative. So we've also got a powerful impact on heartbeat and blood flow because chocolate doesn't just affect the brain, it affects the heart. And theobromine has a vasodilating impact, and so do the flavonols on blood flow. And this changes how your body feels, and it changes how your mind feels. And this is, again, quite a unique aspect of chocolate, that while it's altering your mind, it's also improving your blood flow. And it's kind of making your arteries flexible as opposed to stiff, and therefore the flow can improve. So we have been through the entire psychedelic family, and we've given you the chemicals that are related in chocolate and their larger and more powerful compounds. You're beginning to get a sense of why scientifically chocolate is so chemically unique, because it combines the stimulant molecules like caffeine with the antidepressant molecules and pathways like serotonin and dopamine, and the cannabis-like signaling like the anandamide, and the psychedelic-related chemical backbones like the triterpenoids, but all at very, very low, non-psychoactive doses. And so that is the surprising truth about chocolate. And you can ask a chocolatier that's worked with chocolate for 20 years, and he'll still tell you that it's just got theobromine and caffeine. And that's nowhere near close to the actual truth. So chocolate may not change your reality, but it quietly changes how you feel about it. And of course, we know that from influential figures across literature and the arts and the science. And they've openly discussed and agreed and documented how chocolate has helped them be creative. Now, what we've done is we've laid out the science, the history, the context of civilizations that grew to 60 million people. Some of us do transcend, some of us do meet our ancestors, and some of us have wonderful experiences from the consumption of cacao.